Hello, Tim O'Kelly here, and I wanted to spend a couple of minutes with you asking you really a question. Is your identity tied to your work? Okay, so hang with me just for a second. If you have never had an experience with me before, let me tell you a little bit about me. I was raised in Oklahoma, came out to California, and worked in a restaurant company. One day, the boss asked me to take a personal development course. Never taken one before, didn't know what they were. And he looked at me and he goes, "You know what? I think you'll like it." And I don't know, but I'm sure glad I decided yes. And I went to the class that next weekend, and I learned more about myself than I've ever learned in my entire life in a weekend. And I know that sounds hard to believe, but it's very doable. If you've ever done personal development courses and they're powerful, you could say the same thing. Because it's so inward. You look at you, you learn more about yourself. And I decided that at that moment, I was going to do this for the rest of my life. I didn't know what part, I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I knew I was going to do it. Now, 1988, October. It's grown since then. And one of the things that I see in personal development, talking to people all over the country, different parts of the world, is our identity. And you know, there's no classes on this when we're young. There's no classes in high school that I know of, grade school, high school, that really starts you off with, why are you here? What are you doing here? You know, let me just put it this way. There might be some out there that I don't know about. Let me say it this way. Let me correct myself. I never did a class where I looked at, what do I want to do? Now, I looked at classes, what do you want to do for a living? You know, the model, go to school, get a degree, get a job, get married, have kids, live the American dream. That's really the only thing I ever heard. So I start looking at, what am I going to do for a living? I never looked at, what company am I going to own? You might have, but bear with me. I'm just speaking from me, my perspective. I never looked at that. I looked at what job. And as the more work I do with people, one thing that I've seen that leads to a lot of unhappiness is when our identity is tied to our results at work, tied to what we do. Now, I could go into a lot of other areas on this. Please hear me. Is my identity a mother raising children? Is my identity a father, which I am? Is my identity, look at the father I am. Look at the job I have. Look at the house I have. Look at the letters, the numbers. Now you'll know we don't edit. The letters behind my name on the office door. Is that my identity? And what I've found, and working with a lot of people, is as long as that's a majority of my identity, I'm never really happy. Because if my identity is outside of myself, then I've got to put so much energy in making sure that that works, and such a fear if it collapses, a fear if I lose the house, a fear if I don't make the bills, a fear of so much fear wrapped up into that. Because if that's my identity, I've got to make that work. And here's something interesting. I don't care how successful you are out there, you'll still want to be more successful if that's your identity. So this message is not like, do something different. You got to quit doing. I'm just talking, I guess, right now about, who are you? What is your identity? You ever heard this before? Do you have a job? Or does a job have you? Is your identity a human being? Is your identity a joyful, happy, thriving human being that has a career, that has maybe a job? Or is it's my job, it's my career, that's who I am? And I'm just asking you, just take a few minutes to look at that. What do you focus on? Because if you really take a turn and focus on your identity as just a human being. Now, there's a word I could use right now that maybe throws some people off course, but it's true. Is my identity my spirit? And if you look at that and you start focusing on who you are as spirit, versus any physical thing, any amount of money, any result. You've entered a whole new world at this point. And it's what I call really exploring your higher self versus yourself, which is job, career, money. And please, I understand this. We all have, well, we don't all have to, but a lot of us have to work. A lot of us have to find a way to bring in money. I understand that. I'm not saying don't bring in money anymore, but it doesn't have to be your identity. To start having you as a human being be your identity, and to work on my happiness, to work on my fulfillment, to work on my even, well, I know some people, I was going to say health, but I know some people that are completely wrapped up in my identities, my health. What I mean by that is the look. I've got to be in shape, I got to be fit, I got to be skinny. That's my identity. I'm not, when I talk about health, I'm talking about the inside health. You know, the inside health. Like, why are you here? What is your purpose for being here? If you ever do study spiritual laws, you'll find the law of Dharma, law of purpose, that says you have a purpose, you have a reason, and you're better at that than anybody else. And what the purpose of it is to find that, to discover, to land on that, of what it is, to let it grow inside of you and then express it. That's why you're here. I don't think you're here to make money. I don't think you're here, I should say we. I don't think we're here to just do our job, to just make money, to pay the bills. We're not here just to have kids. I mean, it's a great contribution, please. It's very, very great contribution. I have 3 of them. But that's not my identity. And believe me, when I say that right now, it was for years when I raised my daughter. It was my identity. Look how I am as a father. Look what incredible father I have. It's interesting, when the father role starts to change when she gets older, I went through a period of time where I was lost. When she didn't need me, when she didn't demand that father, I was like, now what, right? You see empty nesters do that. It's been, my role is to be a parent. My role is to take care of the kids. My role is to make sure I raise them. And then when they're off, they're like, what? What am I doing? What do I do now? How do I even live with my wife now? How do I live with my husband now? Because it's always been the kids, right? I'm not here to make any of that wrong. Those are all the stages that we go through. But I am inviting you to take the stage of really having your spirit, you as a part of humanity, to be your identity. And have your job, and have your work, and have your kids. But your identity is you. Who are you? One of the great exercises you can do is really start to question that, even write it down. Are you your work? Are you your job? Are you your parent? And to really question it. Take some time to question, who are you? Are you happy? Well, can't really be happy, or can you? Are you really good with you? You know, a lot of things that you see with kids nowadays that's really, really troubling is there's a lot of kids who have a really hard time being with themselves. And my mentor, Dr. Wayne Dyer, rest in peace, passed away, if you're timing this, passed away almost a year ago. And he said it this way. He said, you know, if a teen does not like to be with themselves, they have to be with TV, they have to be with a video game, they have to be with the phone, they have to be with friends, they have to be with the sports, they have to be with whatever. If they don't really like time with themselves, guess what? They don't like themselves. And they've identified themselves through what they do. And that can be a really, really slippery slope. And I don't think that there's any appropriate age for us to start looking at this. That really, who am I? I invite you to take that journey and to possibly detach from the things that we have identified ourselves with. And just when you do that, and I got it, it's not going to happen overnight, but when you start doing it, just notice what your life starts looking like. Just notice how you start feeling. Notice what you start doing. It's a very, very different way to operate. I invite you, take that journey to really question, what is my identity? Who am I? Thank you for checking this out. I really do appreciate it. Thanks.